It is a brand new episode of Flyers Daily. It is a Monday episode of Flyers Daily. Plenty to look back on, plenty to discuss, and we do that on Mondays with our insider. Mondays with Meltzer. You read his work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. It is Bill Meltzer. Bill, did you have a good St. Patrick's Day at the Flyers Carnival?
Sure did. It's always a great time. It's been a lot of time hanging out by where the alumni were, but I was able to walk around, and there's always so much work that goes into it. But I think the fans that turn out always have a great time, and obviously it supports some great causes too. So always a day you circle in the calendar, countdown to.
It's funny because I remember as a kid, originally it was the Flyers Wives Fight for Lives Carnival, and I remember as a kid going to games and getting Flyer magazine and seeing pictures of Bernie Parent in net or Pelly, and it was such a signature event. It felt like Game 83 to me. That's how ingrained it is in my now almost 52-year-old body that event and how big it is and how meaningful it is.
Oh, for sure. It's funny, like you look back at some of Carnival memories, and one I was just thinking about today was in 06, 07, of course, was the worst year in franchise history. But I remember that the Flyers had just traded for Braden Coburn from Atlanta that time. So I think Kobe's first act as a Flyer, he was at the Carnival.
Wow.
And he was walking in, and people didn't recognize his face yet. So until he sat down, I don't think people recognized that it was the new Flyer.
Oh, that's funny. And it's a great introduction to the fan base. I talked to Jamie Drysdale yesterday and some of the newer guys, and they just think that it's a great event and a very grounding event. Let's first talk about the week that was, Bill, because a few games have gotten really sideways for the team from a goals allowed perspective. You give up 7 last Saturday against Tampa. Then you have the 3-2 win over San Jose, but then you give up 6 twice to Toronto and Boston. And looking at the team, to me, I've certainly identified some structural issues and the way that they're defending, and it's really cost them. And against these teams in this gauntlet, that's going to happen if that continues.
Oh, without a question. And I mean, some of these coverage mistakes, particularly, have been pretty egregious. Redundant coverages, two defensemen going to the same side. It's happened multiple times. Several backdoor goals. Those you can't put in the goalie. Some penalty problems too. The penalty kill has been so strong all year, and you're going to have hiccups, right? Even the best penalty kill is going to go through some hiccups. The PK was an issue this past week. They weren't killing them, other than the one game. Against Toronto, oddly enough, the Flyers lost that game really at 5-on-5. They actually won the special teams that day.
The thing about it that's odd is it feels like a lot of the mistakes of early last season and past couple of seasons, because those were the issues. And for example, I know you got the same tweet I did from a Flyer fan saying to hold John Tortorella's feet to the fire regarding playing Mark Stahl and Erik Johnson. And I thought Stahl had a really rough game against Toronto. Same against Boston. I didn't understand why he jammed Jake DeBrusk as he drove the middle and gave that puck up on the Geeky goal, because he had coverage there. Even on the power play goal that Coyle scores on the back door, he jumps inside to the right side and then gets tangled with TK to go to the left side. And to me, again, redundancy. And I know you want to support the draw, but redundancy and coverage. I haven't seen the same glaring issues from Erik Johnson, but my question is where do you go? They've played 14 different D this year. I don't know where you go to take them out.
Right now, you're without 4 regulars.
Yeah,
and obviously Sean Walker trade, and that's something the Flyers are going to be working around the rest of this year. The difference in his ability on Saturday, and not just the 2 goals he had, but the way he could trigger the rush, the way he could join the play up ice, the way he could break up plays with his stick. Just the blue line several times. The ability that he had to do those things and the chemistry that he had with Nick Seeler, the pairing was eating a lot of big minutes, and they were very, very effective. The Flyers have to work without that now. Obviously, they're not going to have Walker, and hopefully Nick gets back soon. But that's a big hole in the lineup, especially late in the season.
Yeah, if you're wondering why the D looks different now and the structure looks different, because 2/3 of it is different, and it's not the same level of player. And I talked to Torch yesterday at the carnival and and he mentioned those 2 goals by Sean Walker in Colorado, and
Yeah,
said we did the right thing in moving him, but it is hard. It's conflicting because that guy would have helped you down the stretch, especially with some injuries on that right side with Risto and Jamie Drysdale. But sticking to your guns and still making the deal to get the first
yeah.
round pick, not just living in the moment, is kind of the definition of a rebuild. So, I mean, look, they only have the one recall unless it's under emergency conditions. Do we see Louis Belpedio again or Emil Andre on that left side again? I don't know. I don't know that you do. And I don't know. The other thing, too, I don't know it'd be better. I don't know that it's an improvement. I know people go, well, you see Stahl, it's bad. I go, well, in the Florida game, I thought he played really well, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think that those other things are options. And if they are an option, I think it's a lateral move anyway.
No, for sure. And every guy has his strengths and his weaknesses. So let's just do a hypothetical where you're calling up Emil Andre. I think he could be effective on an NHL power play right now.
Agreed.
Right. He moves the puck well. He's very good up ice. In terms of coverages, defensive reads, those kind of things, I think the inexperience still shows a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, especially given the number of goals we're giving up lately, that would really impact anything. So
yeah. Bill, where does all of this go right now with Cam Atkinson? Because since he had the 2-point game back on the 25th of January, he's gone 16 games without a point. He's been healthy scratched in a number of them, -9 over that period of time, and 14.36 of ice time. I know he is a very proud pro, and this is probably very difficult for him. Maybe the most adversity he's faced in his career from a production standpoint. Where do things go with Cam Atkinson for the remainder of this year and beyond?
well, for the remainder of this year, he's one of those guys who you have to start to try to get going if you can.
Yeah.
Beyond this year, or are you looking at a buyout, or are you looking at riding out the contract? I don't know. I think that's a decision to be made in the off season.
Part of which may be affected by Ryan Johansson, correct?
And that's certainly a piece of it too, particularly if Johansson is unable to gain clearance to where you potentially could buy him out or whatever. You can't buy out or send down an injured player. It's why he's not with the Phantoms, right now, and he's with the Flyers. So, I think that with Cam, I mean, do I feel optimistic of a turnaround in this final 15 games or so? It's hard to feel optimistic right now of his being able to do that. I'm more optimistic of Couturier. I actually think Couturier has taken some kind of baby steps in recent games.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think these veterans who miss so much time, and it's hard coming back. It's hard coming back in that 82 game season. And, I think it's something the Flyers need to figure out in a hurry. I thought it was interesting. Guryanov was a healthy scratch in Boston. I think they'd like to look at him a little bit more, at least.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Brink is a little. Not I think he's definitely a little bit in the doghouse with Tortorella.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in the lower end of the lineup, I think you might still see one game it might be Delorier, and one game might be Atkinson, and
Yeah.
I think that's still fluid.
Yeah, I think they probably with the Boston game they wanted to let Guryanov just kind of watch and see what they're doing, and as he's just getting acclimated to the deal and everything like that as well, kind of slow roll him, but they don't have a lot of time to slow roll him or anybody else. Let's talk about Couturier, because I thought in the Toronto game I thought he made some plays in that game. I thought he was much better with stick on puck and his positioning and decision making in the game. And that's been something that's been a little bit of a struggle for him of late. But I was really surprised in the Boston game, Bill, as they moved him up in the lineup and put him out there. TK's on his line, and he's got some weapons out there in Farabee, and he only played 11 minutes and 10 seconds. One forward played less, and that was Nick Delarier. I was really shocked by the ice time in that game.
No, I was too, especially because I don't think Scott Laughton had one of his better games.
Yeah. In the faceoff soccer as well.
Yeah. In the third period, you did see, as you said, Couturier moved up as the game went along and actually made a nice play in the, it was Delarier's goal, which was a big moment in the game. I mean, it cut the gap to two, then Frost scores, you're back to within one. So I think Couturier helped in that game. When I look at his body of work over the last week or two, I liked his game in Florida. The game in Tampa, I don't think you could judge anybody by.
No.
And also, I don't think most of the team was very good against San Jose either. But so I don't know. I think Couturier, he shows moments where it looks like he's getting back on his game. So.
Is part of that maybe shielding the dearth of ice time, not overloading him with it, and something a little bit more manageable. But I don't know that you can go down the stretch here and have him playing under 15, 14 minutes a night.
I think that in these big games, the stretch of 7 games against top opponents, I don't think you can have Sean Couturier playing the second least amount of ice time among your forwards. You need him. This is the time of year. Early this season, the Flyers were kind of burning the candle at both ends, playing him 20 minutes a night. Right now is when you need the version of Sean Couturier who plays 20 minutes a night. That if you're going to hang in through the stretch, and mind you, they're getting help from other teams. The Islanders lost again today, for example.
Yeah,
but.
Detroit too.
But if you're going to, because some of these teams are going to be playing each other, so someone's going to get the 2 points. The Flyers need to take care of their own business. So, but Couturier has to be a huge piece that if he's not, you're in major trouble.
You see a little frustration in his body language?
I do.
I do too.
I do, and it's never something he's never experienced before. He's had injury issues before, but his ice time being down and feeling like, because you're not going to find too many prouder players than him or self-motivated players than Sean Couturier. And for whatever reason, since the middle of January, he had the 2-game injury, and he says that has nothing to do with it. I mean, I'll take him at his word. But it's been since the middle of January. It's been a major struggle. I mean. Maybe I'm seeing what I want to see, right? But I do think in a couple of recent games, I think there have been hints at least of a little bit of recovery in his game. It still has to keep getting better because the schedule is going to get easier, for a while yet. So
very difficult. Very difficult week coming up with Toronto again. In Carolina, Thursday, Saturday, Boston, Sunday, Florida. What a murderer's row. 4 games and 4 really tough games in the week. Yeah, situational usage with him was something that I really kind of noticed as well, which leads to that ice time being down. Joel Farabee has a new career high in goals. He scored his 20th and 21st, Bill, in the game against Boston. No shock where he scores them from. He's always around the net. To my eyes, I think he's only scored 1 goal on a clear-sided shot or a shot outside the hash marks the entire season. Everything else has been in tight. And that tells me a lot about the player, and he knows his role. And every point that he gets or a goal, the remainder of this season will be a career high. He had the 20 and 55 games in the 56-game season. But Joel Farabee, consistency still a factor with he and some of the other younger players, but I like both goals that he scores against Boston because of when he scores them as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, those are big moments, and near the net, and that's where he had the deflection. The just after the power play expired, it was almost a power play goal because
Yeah.
So it was technically 5-on-5, but you weren't really 5-on-5 because he wasn't back in the play yet. So it was really it functioned like a power play goal. And then the other one, the wraparound kind of banks that in. I mean that's where he's going to score. Um,
Yeah.
I thought when he had that goal drought for a while at the beginning, I think he was still doing those things, and I think you go a while, you get a little frustrated, it gets in your head a little bit. So now he's scoring a little bit again. Obviously, the 2-goal game, but a couple of recent ones. Tippett is hot right now. That's I
Hmm.
mean, these are guys the Flyers need scoring. Um,
Yeah.
Frost has maybe 4 points in the last 3 games, something like that. These are all guys you need contributing offense for you. So that's been a silver lining in what's going on lately.
Yeah. Frost has the goal that is right there with Tippett in my eyes, Bill, with the Tippett turnaround goal that he scored earlier in the season on a spinorama, where Frost, the thing that he does in this play, first, like in the week for Frost, I look at the assist on the Farabee breakaway goal. Like that's a wow moment, right? And then what he does on that 2-on-2 with Tippett as he drops the puck off to him and Tippett drives the middle of the ice.
Yeah,
And Frost sneaks in, kind of slips through, and then completely opens his body up, puts his back to the goaltender, face to Tippett, which is just opens himself up for the pass. And then the deception that can follow because of the way he did that with his body. And then to execute what he did is something that you see a lot in practices when players are just having fun. But
yeah.
to execute it in the game's a different story, and he nailed it. It was just a spectacular goal.
Oh, it was a terrific goal, obviously, in a key moment of the game.
Yeah.
Remember last year, I think it was against Anaheim. He had another between the legs goal, but
Hmm.
that was one where it was like beside the net. It was kind of stationary, and he had all kinds of time and space. This was a harder goal to score. So it
Yeah.
was, yeah. This was a pretty big one at a big time. Unfortunately, then you give up another one, and the Farabee wraparound only brings you back to one down again. But
Well, let's talk
yeah,
about the other one
yeah,
because that's a goal. We're talking about the Danton Heinen goal, which made it 6-4 at the time after you crawl back to make it 5-4. And it's not a 2-on-1 threat. The player's trailing the play by way too far and too high. So he is not an option. And I thought Felix, he's kind of retreating with the play, which you will do if there's a 2-on-1 threat. But if there's not, you just grab your ice and you stick to it. He's kind of coming back with the play, and that in turn makes him smaller. And you just can't give up the goal in that spot. And that's been the haunt of his NHL career, is that goal.
yeah. Unfortunately, so. I mean, it was a nicely placed shot to the far side upstairs,
Sure.
but I thought he gave up a lot of net in general. He gave up a lot
Yeah.
of net. So, and you said he was deep. He was deep in his net and made himself small
Yeah. He
on,
comes out
on that
high, but he's
sequence.
moving back
Yeah,
with it. And he doesn't need to, you know, revert back into his crease at that point because Heinen looks up, he sees he
yeah.
doesn't have an option. He just turns,
I
stay
mean,
out.
no, no, for sure, for sure. I think sometimes the eye test as plays develop. You
Mhm.
watch it and you expect as the release is coming, you're expecting a save or
Yeah.
like, oh boy, this is gonna be a tough one. And this is one I thought was to say it was going to be a save as it
Yeah,
was
me too.
developing. And sometimes obviously it hits a stick or deflects or whatever, or the puck's on its edge or something weird can happen. But this is one this is one I thought was pretty stoppable. So
Yeah, and incredible. It's a consequential one too because then Farabee gets you within 6-5 and the Flyers push, but it's just I think it's a deflating one on the bench when you crawl back with what you thought was inconsequential goal with Delarier, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get the Frost goal, and now you're within one. And the way Frost scores, I think lit the team up
yeah,
to a very high degree. Bill, I see that Cam York plays over 27 minutes in the game. And to me, he's got no signs of really slowing down. He has been, yeah, since maybe the 30 game mark of the season or 20 game mark of the season, a huge highlight and a big reason for optimism with this team. I talked to him at the carnival yesterday, I asked him how the body feels, and it's like it's not good. And this is a player that I did not think was going to be a player that really embraced blocking shots. He said he's kind of done that everywhere he's been, but I don't know about this to this degree. And he's good at it because he's so stable on his feet. But the way that he is growing now, to me, it's not matriculating the ball 2 yards at a time. He's chunk
Yes.
developing right now.
No, for sure. He's so efficient.
Yeah,
You know, there's such an economy of motion with him, and he's almost always in the right position. Stick, body.
yeah. Stick is
He makes
good.
some. He kills so many plays before they become dangerous.
Yeah,
And I think that's something he's going to get a way higher level this season. Every Friday on PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, if it's not a game day, we do a Friday column called the Friday Forecheck, and it was York this time. It was all about kind of how far along his game has come defensively. I think sometimes you could almost take him for granted unless he puts up points that night.
yeah.
And
Done that
even
too.
goal-wise, he could have 30 this year. He could have 30 points this year in his first full NHL season. That's pretty impressive, actually. Not bad.
Has he changed your kind of outlook on his ceiling? Because he's changed my opinion on it. I saw a player before. I wasn't sure if there was enough ass in his game. And I even
Yeah,
talked to Torts about it. Is there enough compete in there? He's like, I don't know. Because if there's not, he's going to leave you wanting more.
yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of compete in his game. And he's really kind of, I look at him as being a much higher level player than maybe I even thought.
I agree. I could see him. Somebody asked me on Twitter today, do you see him as a number one defenseman? I said, well, it depends on your definition of a number one defenseman. Is he going to be a Norris candidate? Probably not, right?
No.
Probably not. But could he be part of a high-end tandem on your top pairing? Give you 23, 24 in a huge game, more than that minutes. He's already doing that. So yeah, he can be that.
Yeah, I see that too. I totally agree, and I just think he needs to play with a right side guy that's got some size, and moving him back to the left side, I think has been another reason why he's handling plays off the rush so well. Struggle with that part of it a little bit on the right side, but man, the skating ability, and you nailed it. It's the efficiency he doesn't gas himself. He never looks tired. And you see defensemen over generations that are like that, whether it was Paul Coffey, who I never saw huffing and puffing, Howie, I never saw huffing and puffing. You see guys, do you ever see Hedman breathe heavy? I've never
No,
seen it.
exactly. No, never.
Doughty, never do those guys put themselves in a position to be on the ice on dead legs. And that's just being able to read the game and great skaters.
Yeah, and that's it's such a he's on the obviously he's far from the biggest guy, but but even in today's game particularly, I don't think you have to be the biggest guy. I think that I think what we're seeing is the real deal, and I actually think he's going to continue to improve. As a matter of fact,
Bill, next one up is Toronto. Third time the charm playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. That game would have been, if not for the first 6 or 7 minutes of that third period where it got out of control, I think maybe it's a different game. But first and foremost, you go back to Ersson on Tuesday, and he's got to deal with Matthews again and that high-powered offense. But got to batten down the hatches on Tuesday, and hopefully third time is the charm.
Now, for sure. Now, you have to give Ersson a chance to give you a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing in the little meltdown in the third period was you had, you have a defensive mistake, an egregious coverage mistake. I'm not really sure what Travis Sanheim was doing, like lined up directly behind York as a rush is coming down the ice, and coming down the middle of the ice. That I don't, he's your right defenseman. I don't know why there's any kind of confusion on that one. On the goal that came, was it 8 seconds later, 9 seconds later, something like that. That was one where, the winger has to cover the high man on that play.
That's Brink on that play.
It was Brink's guy. And he didn't. So, those kind of breakdowns are going to kill you against any team, really, but especially a team that can attack you the way Toronto can. The Flyers have to give Urson a chance to give them a chance. And if
Yeah.
they do that, then he's capable.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens Tuesday. It's going to be a very busy week, Bill. So we'll wrap it up there, and we'll recap it all next week. All 4 games. Again, it's Toronto this week, Carolina, Boston, and Florida. You don't get more of the top crust of the pie than that. That's going to be an incredibly important week for the Flyers as well. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and HockeyBuzz.com, and we will talk to you tomorrow. We'll preview Flyers Toronto on a brand new episode of Flyers Daily.